The Commissaire Commentaries is a podcast by USA cycling officials for officials, riders, and the cycling community as a whole. We are here to discuss various cycling and officiating topics, explore who our officials are, why they do what they do, and what we can all continue to do to help our officiating program thrive. So Ryan Fu and I, Marcy Weiss, are your hosts. And this week we have Sara Rodney as our guest for our third and final episode of our Safe, Fair, and Fun mini-series. So to recap, if you haven't joined us for those previous episodes, Safe, Fair, and Fun is a phrase that you'll hear if you take a CATC officiating course. You've probably just heard it at a bike race as far as what officials want to do, what organizers want to happen. So we're kind of focusing on those basics of officiating and that real solid foundation of an event. And we have made it to our fun podcast with Sara Rodney. So I'll let Sara introduce herself in a moment, but I just want to say I'm very excited to have Sara here for this episode. I know that specifically on this topic includes some questions that I had for Sara several years ago when I was getting to the more serious level of officiating and kind of figuring out that balance between fun and being a good official. So Sara, go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about yourself and then we'll get going.
All right, my name is Sara Rodney. I am a U.S. citizen and I grew up as an official in the U.S., but since 2007 or 8 or so. I want to start by saying my father told me the entire time I was growing up that I had no SOH. That's sense of humor. So the fact that you all chose me for the fun edition of your podcast, my parents had a really good laugh at.
That's wonderful.
We'll see if it works. No, I started officiating in 2007, 2008. It was one of those deals where my husband was racing a little bit and I was at bike races, but yeah, that standing around and spectating and having fun at a race like that was not my thing. I wanted to do something. I wanted to be busy. And a friend of mine came over and said, you'd make a good official. And I was like, okay. And that's all she wrote. And like literally later, she told me, you're no fun anymore. You can't go riding with me anymore because you're never home. You're always at a bike race. And I'm like, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I totally get it.
So, worked a lot in the regional level, really enjoyed working in my region of Missouri when I still lived there. Coordinated officials, helped with officials training. I really enjoy helping people who want to become officials learn what they need to learn and enjoy their job. Worked a little bit on the National Technical Commission, worked at the national level in the US, became UCI in cyclocross. And then all of a sudden my husband said, hey, let's move back to the Netherlands. He's Dutch. I'm not. And I'm like, okay. So now for the last 3.5 years, we've lived in the Netherlands and I now work as an official for the KNWU, which is like the Koninklijke Dutch Cycling Association. Some words I still can't pronounce. So I have new colleagues now and it's really different.
Awesome. Well, we are, again, super excited to have you. We miss you like crazy here in the States, but we're excited, that you're getting all those cool opportunities abroad and can't wait to hear what you have for our perspective on fun, as well as how that might be different for what you've experienced in the past couple of years. I guess to start off, what in general does fun mean to you at a bike race? Why fun? Why is that a part of, our Safe, Fair, Fun mantra?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot because you guys listed for me like, well, we've got officials and then we've got racers and we've got spectators and we've got organizers. And it made me think about how do we define fun for ourselves? What do we personally find joy in? Because I think what I find fun, other people might not find fun. I think what officials in general find fun might be just a little bit different than what the people who are still spectating find fun. Perhaps.
Mhm.
Let's be realistic, right? I mean, as officials, we have a little bit of a type A personality. We can sometimes be a little bit of a control freak, and we get really excited about weird technical things. We do.
Yeah. Or
I
even
find that fun.
fun like papers and pens. Last month, Ori and I had like this whole conversation about these cool pens he had, and we're like,
Exactly.
"Oh, cool."
Or what kind of highlighters are you using?
Right. Yep.
Why is that fun? I can't explain that to you, but it is.
Yeah.
I did a track race last week, 6 days of racing, where my primary job was to watch the racing and keep track of riders up and riders down and feed the information. And my husband came to the last day of the races, and he came home afterward as a spectator, and he said, okay, so you just spent 8 hours a day for 6 days watching them go around the track and then notating this and notating that. And he's like, how do you stand it? I was like, oh, I had a blast. It was so much fun.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with, stuff that we can relate to as far as we like to do stuff. We like to organize stuff as officials. It absolutely is a certain sort of personality of just like getting in with all the technical stuff that we learn and implementing it.
But I think it's also important to know what you enjoy, right? Racers, why do they race? They're not there just to have fun. I mean, they take their racing seriously too, and they want to learn and they want to grow. But there's a certain amount of inner joy in the struggle of being the best racer they can. Why do organizers put together a bike race? It's a pretty similar set. Same with us.
I think also, when we talk about the different, our different stakeholders at events, like riders and organizers and officials, and what we enjoy and what we have fun, it really comes down to, that sense of balance. What are some thoughts you have on balancing things like, the officials crew itself interacting at an event and how that can be fun at the same time as how it can stay on task and be effective for a race?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to say, which probably will be no surprise to anyone who knows me, is that safe and fair part, those things take priority. And part of our job as officials is to make sure that things are safe and fair so that everybody else can have fun. But we're human beings too, and we interact with people too, and we're working on a team. And for me, that's one of the most exciting things about being at a bike race, is not just taking care of the bike race, but having this team of colleagues around me that I work with, and we pull together and solve problems as they arise and try to make it the best possible event that you can. When you begin to form camaraderie with your team and you get to know people a little better, and you get a little bit of a sense of who each of these different individuals are and what they enjoy and how they find fun in what they do, then those little tiny little pieces start to come into play. Like, oh, guess what highlighter I just got, or the banter over the radio. I remember at a race I was calm too, and it was the tail end of the race, and it was not something that was going to disturb the quality of the racing at all, but there were very few marks on the run in to this race. And I knew I had Roger Cravey behind me on a motorcycle taking the marks. And there was just this dude on the side of the road with a bike. And I was like, the mark is the dude on the side of the road with the bike. And it's like, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, because Roger Cravey loves the dude. And so I had to wait for it, and it came right back at me, and then we just went on to the next mark. Hilarious while it was happening, but I can't tell a joke to save my life, so the story is what the story is. Roger will tell it better.
Sarah, this area where you're mentioning about working as a team and building that fun atmosphere to better camaraderie, better effective working relationships, have you encountered in your experience officials that on the front side, they're very serious, right? They may not embrace fun readily. If you were a chief referee or as one of their the other colleagues, how would you encourage fun or have them embrace that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about advice, and a piece of advice that I have for officials is to work to try to get to know everybody on your crew. We're human beings. There are people that we gravitate to, whether it's because it's the only person I know on this crew so far, because I'm just now getting assigned at national levels and being moved around, to like, they're my favorite person because we have this and that in common, and you tend to sort of gravitate and sit next to those people. I've noticed that when I make a conscious effort to sit next to different people when we have dinner together on multiple day events and to try to get to know different individuals and just learn a little bit about them, it can bring out the best in everybody. Like Ryan sat in a car in the back seat with you and Jeff, right? And then we figured out that I was born in Bangkok, Thailand. And now the two of you are, what are you?
I think we're your Asian brothers from a different mother or something like that. And
That's
you're our
exactly it.
Asian sister.
My Asian brothers from another mother.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's about getting to know people, right? That can gradually maybe break down some barriers and allow that working relationship to happen.
And you're right. Sometimes you run into people who are a little more standoffish or seem more serious or just don't seem like they want to engage. And they probably do, but there might be other things going on. For example, the first time I'm working in a position that's new at a higher level race, I'm going to be a little more nervous and a little less easygoing and collegial with everyone else because my head is like 100% in the game. With some layers of experience, I can do that and do this at the same time. And you just also need to allow other people to be themselves, right? So sometimes people have a sense of humor that's more subtle than others, and you let it shine through, or they don't have one at all, but they have other good qualities, and you just need to appreciate those things. But you know, fun isn't just about being silly. Fun isn't just about having a party. Fun is about our relationships with each other and what we personally find enjoyable. And that's important. My definition of fun is not exactly the same definition of fun as everybody else's. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting for 8 hours on an end watching people go around in circles.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That funness is kind of, an environment that we foster of giving the openness and the room for everyone to, like you said, be themselves. So I also think what you're saying about getting to know everyone, our community is a size where we can really get to know each other. And I think that that's really important. And, I don't know how that stands for other sports, but I think in our sport for sure, the way that we spend time together, the individuals that we get to see over and over again, the subjectivity of so much of what we do really lends towards all of those individual relationships. And I'm curious what your take is on that as far as the, that small community extends to our riders or organizers. What are some of your perspectives on having fun with riders at the same time as keeping that objectivity, making sure that you are presenting yourself as professional, non-biased, at the same time as staying, to some sense, approachable and as someone that people can talk to and potentially have fun with when they are in other positions at races?
Yeah. I think a sense of professionalism is always important when you're interfacing with the riders. But sometimes they tease you, and you can listen to it and tease back a little bit. But when the race is going on, you have to be professional. That's really the only choice that you have. I'm thinking about this course walk that I did with Dot Abbott. I wasn't even officiating at the time. I went up to Jingle Cross. It was the first year it was a World Cup. And she was there trying to help no, it was the year before it became a World Cup, because she was trying to help them decide what they needed to do to make sure that they could meet the World Cup requirements. So I'm like, hey, I want to learn more. Can I go on the course walk with you? So we're headed out in the course walk, which included going in that long wooded section that's just out in the middle of nowhere. Almost no one goes back in the woods.
Yeah.
And we're walking along, crossing the creek. We turn a right, we head up. There's an amateur race going on at that time. And there are the two guys with the fishing pole and the dollar bills over the course. And she's in her whole UCI gear. And we turn the corner and he turns and he looks at her and he's like, oh my God, they're everywhere. And, because technically that's illegal, right? Definitely during a UCI race, that's illegal. But cross races are also a little special. So, Dot and I, we looked at them, we laughed, they stopped and just sort of went somewhere else. But, we just walked on and waved at them and kept going, because nobody needed to be admonished at that point in time. We need to be careful that the UCI level races will hold to the standards that the UCI sets. We need to make sure that if there are any other slightly small shenanigans going on that we observe, that it doesn't affect the safety. They had a fishing pole. It didn't have a real sharp hook on it. They had a little magnet thing so they could hang dollar bills over. So there's the roles, there's the black and white, and then there's the shades of gray that operate in between. And then there's the picture of the whole bike race and what's good for the race. Those bike races are fun for spectators and for the riders. It's good for the race. And at some of the lower amateur level, some of that shenanigans is absolutely 100% fun and good for the race. So sometimes what I can do to help the racers have fun and the organizer create a fun environment is not get in the way if I don't need to be in the way.
Yeah, I think that's a great point of, recognizing that balance as well. Is we are at the crux of a lot of what's happening at events, and we need to walk that fine line between we're creating that fun environment for everyone, not at the sacrifice of safety and fairness, but our sport is also the size where we really want to be ambassadors and diplomatic and make sure that we can allow that fun for everyone else to be maximized at the same time as not compromising what we need to be there for. Because, at its heart, we're all here because we love the sport and want to see it grow.
You said that fine line, and sometimes it's a gray line, but sometimes it's not a fine line, because if you do run into things that other people think are fun, but affect the racing, affect the fairness, affect the safety, then it's not okay. And then we are obligated to do something about that in our role as officials. And so that there's a serious component about that. And I think when we're taking care of all those pieces and we're working together as a team to do that, that makes racing much more fun for us too.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that bit about teamwork too, that's something that we touched on in safety with Dave Folks a while back, of we're all there as members of the team to be aware of what's going on, observe everything that's happening, and work together to define that line, between fun for everyone and how to run a successful, safe, and fair event. Helping organizers to do so.
And for officials, the fun part, the fun part for me during a race is doing that hard work. But then camaraderie with your officials, there are little things that pop up during the race, but a lot of fun happens before and after and during training. I had so much fun at my Cat A class when I went to T-Town right before I left the US, and getting to know those officials there better while learning more about track racing. every time that we do a multi-day race and you sit at dinner with officials or go and grab a drink and talk about how things went or just talk about our lives and what we enjoy, those moments are fun too. Getting in the car and doing a long transfer. There's a way to get to know someone. And your drivers, if you're at a stage race and you've got a driver,
Right.
that person then gets included on your team and you have to get to know them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, thinking about even just, as we're traveling to different cities and states and all sharing into, well, who's the social coordinator? Where do we go for dinner? And,
Yeah, I don't have to do that anymore.
Is that not a thing?
No, race organizers feed officials here.
Ooh,
We don't get paid very much, but we always get a meal. We get fed very well.
nice.
No,
Okay.
you even start the race with a cup of coffee in a ceramic cup. I kid you not. I kid you not. And the judges' areas are generally always heated.
Oh,
I kid you not.
that's so wonderful. Yeah, I think there's,
It's just different.
yeah.
Are you saying, Sarah, that officials in Netherlands have more fun than officials in the United States?
Okay, well,
And,
first, I want to tell you that was the hardest thing about moving. So I moved 3 years ago, which means when I left, I had all of these people that were my officials colleagues in the US. And, I had my officials colleagues in Missouri where I saw them all the time at the local criterium and when I worked local races. But the two of you and all of my other colleagues that I saw nationally that live far away, it was always a treat. Oh, I get to go work a race and I get to go see these colleagues that I've become bonded with. So when I moved here, I knew nobody. And I didn't speak the language. It's like a double whammy.
Right.
Right? So, I started working races a tiny bit the first year, almost not at all because it was COVID. Then I was doing just criteriums and local races, mostly that whole second year. And then that second year when I got assigned in Belgium by the UCI to do 3 different cyclocross races, those were my first UCI assignments when I lived here. At the end of the season, I ended up working 4 of them. I thought, okay, I know more Belgian officials at this point in time than I know Dutch officials. It takes time to get to know people.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was super cool being able to come back this year in October and work Trek Cup and work with my colleagues again, see you again, Marcy.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I mean, that was a treat. But what it really made me realize is that I've begun to form those relationships here and have attachments to my colleagues here now in the same way that I did in the US. And it just takes time. It took time to build those relationships in the US as well. And they're fun in exactly the same way they're fun in the US. We sit around at dinner, we talk about things. There's an occasional joke during the race, but we want the race to go well. It's you're working as a team. And when you sit there and you feel like you belong to that team and the team relies on you for your piece of the work and you rely on them for their piece of the work, that makes things really good.
I think you gave us a diplomatic answer, Sarah. Yes, we're equally fun.
I am not going to say that it was more fun here than there because, you have those moments that stand out. You have moments that stood out for other people. And then 5 years later, someone will say, do you remember that? And you're like, oh my God, I completely forgot about that. That was hilarious. How could I forget?
Yeah.
So we all have our moments. But I will tell you one story. All right. So one of the things that's important, it's important to socialize with your colleagues. It's important to go to dinner and then sometimes do the after dinner things because that's part of the fun. But it's also sometimes important to take care of yourself, right? So I had this moment. This year it was an Internationale Juniore Driedaagse, which is a 3-day international road race. And it was the first race here where I was in charge of the Dutch crew. So I was basically chief referee. Mm-hmm. And we were 3 days. It was the last night. So we were 3 days into the race. And I had decided I'm not going to go down to the bar after dinner tonight. I just don't feel like I've been getting enough sleep. I'm going to take care of a few things that needed to be taken care of. I was reviewing some things, and there were a couple of mistakes that needed to be corrected with the results or the startings for the next day or something like that. So I called the official who was taking care of that. And he's like, I'm in the bar, come down. So I'm like, all right. So I go down to the bar, and the whole crew's down there. And I didn't even realize he was there because he hadn't stayed at the hotel the previous 2 nights, but we moved where it was further from his house. The whole crew was down there. And one of our crew members was singing karaoke.
Yes.
I think he sang for 2 hours. The guy's good, and he likes doing it. And then at one point, I'm sitting there, and they're line dancing. I mean, they're singing songs in Dutch, and they're line dancing, and they're having a blast. And I'm just like, half of this I don't understand, and it feels cultural, but in so many ways, it feels just the same as being with my American colleagues. It was a cool moment. It was a cool moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but karaoke and line dancing, they were having a blast.
Yeah,
No, I did not line dance. I'm not fun. I sat on the couch and I observed the line dancing, and it was hilarious. But no, I did not participate.
I keep waiting for an opportunity to do karaoke, but I do have to say this year at, I think it was Gila, Jeff Wu coordinated us going out bowling, and
I would like that.
That was a blast. One of the motos brought their helmets for safety. We drank the appropriate level of beer that you would drink at a bowling alley. I can't, it was like Bud Light or something, but we did the whole 9 yards, and that was extremely fun. And
I sang karaoke.
What's that?
I sang karaoke one time. I was very young then, but not that young. And it was with Pamela Tullen and Roger Cravey. And we were at one of those symposium things when it was still at the Olympic Training Center. And we went to the bar, and there was a lot of karaoke that was sung. And at one point in the night, I participated. But hopefully there is no video of it.
I'll have to go find the picture of Sara at Gila, I think in 2018. We took a picture of bowling, Jeff, and I think it was Jeff Mertz and Steve from Canada. We went bowling together, and I think those are some of those fun memories that it's not necessarily during the race, but it's this theme about bonding and getting to know your colleagues well that can help you at the times of being serious at a bike race. You know how their personalities are, and that can help work together better during the race. So I think for Jeff, one of those friends of mine where on the outside he can appear to be very, very serious, and I think at some instances during the race you have to have your game face on.
Very much so.
But then you have to find some of these lighthearted moments, and I think he's very good at finding these moments of fun. Usually it's after the race that I think again continues to build our relationships with each other during races.
Ryan, that just made me think of something. So you know how all these big corporations spend lots of money sending their employees to do like challenge obstacle course mental things in order to learn to work as a team with like bonding all around it, like dinner and social things. That's a bike race.
That is true. Yes.
It's a challenge obstacle course with bonding around it. That's a bike race.
Yeah. There's another thing that as I was preparing the materials for this podcast, one of the challenges for recruiting officials is that they don't perceive us having fun. How are ways that we can sort of demonstrate to new potential officials about, hey, officials can have fun at a bike race? Any thoughts about that, Sara?
I was just thinking about adding something for that for you, Sarah. So yeah, piggybacking on Ryan's question with like, what does fun mean in terms of recruiting and retention?
Yeah. Sarah, any advice you can give?
Well, I think if you saw me at a race, you would see that I'm having fun, not because I'm laughing all the time, but because there's a smile on my face. Yeah. I'm enjoying my work. I'm singing along to the music. I'll dance if it's peppy, except in the Netherlands where they play this Dutch polka that's not really, it's weird. So those are the ways that I outwardly show that I'm having fun. I'm willing to talk to people. I'm willing to listen to people. And if it doesn't interfere with my job, I'm willing to listen to people and give that back. But, you know, there's work involved in doing a bike race. You better find that fun too. So I want young people in officiating. We need young people in officiating in all countries of the world, not just in the US.
Right.
Inspiring young people to get involved in this sport and to enjoy it. And as an official, that's something that definitely needs to happen. But I'm not going to lie to you. It's hard work too.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. And so I think what we need to do is look for the people who enjoy that work. And we build the fun around it, because fun can't be artificial, right? It's got to come from somewhere genuine inside of each of us.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question or avoid it?
No, I think you did. You answered what I was thinking about, but Ryan looks like he's thinking, so I'll give him
you made a I think you gave a good answer, Sarah. There is this part where you have to do work. It's hard work, right?
Mm-hmm.
You sometimes have to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning and work 12-hour days. Maybe the food here in the US is not as great, but you know,
the food's good. You just have to plan for it and have a social coordinator and then get transported to it and all of those things.
Right. Being honest is a critical part of it. Your key is about we have to find the people that sort of enjoy that, right? I don't think there's any way around of promoting that part of it, but
no, I think that it's pretty disingenuous if we try to leave that part out, or like also focusing on maybe some of the fun we have at the bigger races or something. Like you've got to find joy in the day-to-day local stuff too, and have that grassroots passion. It's simply because it's such hard work.
Do you know where my joy is in the grassroots day-to-day local stuff? It's the kids racing, the people who just want to get better, who are just starting out, who have questions. And if you as an official become someone that they can go to with their questions, or when something goes wrong and you have to make a call, you take the time to explain, this is why the call was made. That's once again developing those relationships. And at the local level, you then see the same kids and parents and people who are racing over and over again every week. And with that relationship, that becomes fun too, because you feel a part of the family that does include the racers. Instead of holding yourself above them and just always like passing down, here's what you should have done. It's better to work with people and help people grow and learn. And for me, that makes it more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that stuff like that can really elevate local racing too, as we work with riders and organizers, et cetera, to, spread that education. Kind of bringing it back around, I do have another question. I was curious about, we've kind of been talking about how to maximize that fun aspect, but I am curious your thoughts. So when we talk about all of that relationship building, both with officials, organizers, riders, and putting emphasis on that and being a part of our local communities, would you say that there are some hard lines to really, not cross when it comes to being fun, but not sacrificing looking unbiased, looking objective. So, whether it's at a race, whether it's on social media, what are some points at which it's like, wait, hold, we, be fun, but don't do this.
Yeah. For me, it comes back to being a professional, and maybe I had the opportunity to practice this a whole ton as an administrator at a school, but I learned very early on, yeah, there's just stuff that's not going to go on social media. There's stuff that, where I can have fun with a colleague of mine, but not with someone who is professionally in a different category. So when I look at my interactions with racers, I do not want to display any bias. I have some racers that are friends, and then other racers that are just racers. And there's no way that I can demonstrate more bias toward a friend than to any other racer. They need to be all treated the same. It needs to be, that comes back to fairness again. So that sort of professional barrier always needs to be there. And maybe that might feel uncomfortable for some people. Like, why do we have to always be just a little bit apart? But having a professional barrier doesn't mean that you're not a warm and welcoming person. It doesn't mean that you won't listen to someone if there's a problem, or even laugh or respond if somebody makes a joke or a comment back to you. I had I think it was a racer and an announcer who always said, oh, the officials are here. They take the fun out of everything, So I'd come to an event, I'd be like, here I am. I'm ready to take the fun out of everything. Just turn it back in on yourself and accept the role that you're playing. Then you can have some fun with it. But you have to do the role well and professionally in order to have that little space for the playing. And maybe that might seem hard to do if you're just starting out as an official or if you're younger. But that goes back to those relationships as well, where we can coach each other and say, that didn't feel right, or that's maybe not a great idea. Or, the last time I did that, I realized I might be giving this impression. So I'm sharing that with you because you might come to that realization as well. So we can coach each other with that. Where is that exact barrier? But holding yourself apart as a professional does not mean that you're not fun, and it does not mean that you're not warm and welcoming. Maybe sometimes it means that the racers don't know that you're fun, but that's my secret to keep.
Yeah, that's a wonderful way of putting that. And I know that specifically is a piece of advice I had asked you about a number of years ago. Was I'm young, I'm, I don't want to be too serious. I'm not, strict in terms of, overly strict. But how do I balance that with making sure that I'm a good official? Is it possible to do both of those things? And I think that's really important advice from you to give out, that yes, you can be yourself and be a good official at the same time. There are definitely some boundaries, but yes, you can.
Would you like to know the biggest compliment I've ever received as an official? And it came from a local rider in my area who I saw in a different state. And this rider pointed me out to a friend of theirs who was not from our state and said, oh, there's that Sara Rodney. I don't always agree with her, but she's fair. And he said it to the other rider in front of me while I was standing there. And I thought about it for a second, and I thought, that's what I aspire to be as an official. And I just want to have fun while doing it as well. But that level of professionalism where riders think that about me, I was like, that's a good place to be. I'd like to continue to do that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful compliment. And even the fact that, riders can notice that we exist as part of that, one of the players in the game, and not have that, a potentially negative perception or.
Okay. So sometimes my goal is to have people not notice that I exist. Like if I can do my job well and stay out of all the pictures and handle any protests in a way that they seem like they're only tiny little bumps and not hurdles, then I've done my job well. I got sent to Poland this year by the UCI, and it was a race that was the first year on the UCI calendar for cyclocross. It was a weird experience. It was wonderful. It was a great race. But it was a weird experience because they were like, oh, the UCI official is here. What do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And oh, can I have my picture taken with you? Oh, take a picture of her while she's doing a course walk. Oh, take a picture of her while she's standing on the stage. I've never had my picture taken so much. I'm like, no, I'm not the hero here. The other people, the riders, the race, everything else. I'm not the person you take a picture of, not me.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, we don't usually get that sort of recognition.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
But
fun.
that was also the race where the race director is a former racer, and he now works as a mechanic for a professional racing team. And he and his wife invited me after the race because I was staying to the next day to depart. He's like, well, Michael Kwiatkowski, I can't even pronounce it, Kwiatkowski is doing our after party at a disco. Do you want to come? And I thought to myself, all right, I'm never going to get this offer again. I only have my plane clothes and my race clothes. So I'm going in my airplane clothes, my travel clothes. And it was like somebody brought their mom to the disco. But I sat and chatted with his wife the whole time and her friends. And it was fun and it was an experience. And I'm glad I said yes and didn't just sit in well, it wasn't a hotel room. We stayed in a monastery. Didn't sit in my monastery room all evening.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I can't wait for all of us to have those Polish disco moments.
But I mean, the Polish disco moments happen in the US too, just not at a Polish disco.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
The moral is sometimes say yes to some of the things. So if somebody says, we're going bowling, you have the choice to say no. And it might be the right choice for you on some days. But on one day, it might be the right choice to say yes.
Yeah.
And go bond with your team. Right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're coming up to the conclusion of the topic of fun. And Sara, what are your plans for the future of officiating? Will there be a return back to United States, or do you see foreseeably in Netherlands in the future?
Yeah, we're here to stay. So my husband's whole family is here, which is why we moved. My daughter already lived here with her husband. She's married to a Dutchman as well. Both kids have both passports. Since we moved, my parents followed us, so they now live here for it's been a year now.
Nice.
And my son and his wife just moved. So aside from my brother, my whole family and his whole family lives here. So we're not going anywhere.
Okay.
So my plan is to stay in the Netherlands. I've been really fortunate that I stopped my job in the US and I haven't had to pick one up here yet. I might pick up some part-time work, but mostly I work part-time at bike races, which some months is like every single weekend, and some week-long races and some 3-day races. So they're keeping me pretty busy. There's a lot of work here, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm getting to travel around the Netherlands and different parts of Europe. I told Moraine when I left, he said, maybe they'll assign you to the US. I'm like, oh no, that's never going to happen. The UCI is not going to send an American official back to the US to be PCP of an American race. Oh, well, but they did. So who knows? So if I do come back to the US, it'll probably be just because I got sent there. I don't anticipate moving back.
Okay.
But I do miss you guys. I do miss all my colleagues.
Guarantee you have like guest rooms scattered across the US where you are more than welcome anytime. I know that you have one in Milwaukee here.
Thank you. And I would love to be able to host anybody who wants to come here and visit in our really, really tiny apartment. But I do have a couch. It's a bedroom, a living room, dining room combination, a study, and a kitchen.
I love it.
and you have to walk through the shower to get to the toilet.
Oh my God, I love it.
We love it. It's nice living small, but I only have a couch for people to sleep on. But I also have relatives in town with extra bedrooms, and I've got some connections. And I did things like Zach came through, and I met Zach in Amsterdam. We had dinner together. So
Aw.
anyone who's flying through Amsterdam, that's a 30-minute train ride.
Nice. Okay. Well,
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for the offer. I think some of us might take you up on that. Also, congratulations on getting assigned the World Championships this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw that on the calendars. I'm sure that will be a really fun event for you and challenging. So
Hoogheide was fun last year. And it was cool because I went to Hoogheide. The first time I ever worked at World Championships, I got sent to Switzerland, and we were living in the US then. And so I came early to stay with my family and adjust to the time. And we went to Hoogheide, which is always the last one before Worlds, with the family, you know, like eat the French fries, do the whole fan experience. And then it was cool because last year I was back there for the World Championships, and it was an even different experience being on the crew and being surrounded by everything that was going on with the crowd. I've never seen so much people at a bike race. But in the end, you know, World Championships is still a bike race. We're professional and we have fun too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the video that I sent you of doing rock, paper, scissors with one of my colleagues here who didn't grow up playing rock, paper, scissors. And that was in between the women's elite race and the men's elite race, because there's a chunk of time there where you just have to sort of wait until the next race starts.
Okay.
So we played rock, paper, scissors.
Okay. That's a way to have fun at the World Championships.
When we're not teasing each other, yes.
Okay.
And when our colleague is not getting his golden wheel from the from the Dutch Cycling Association. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have you back, Sarah, on a future episode to share some experiences on what you learned and had fun with at the World Championship as the PCP. But thank you, Sarah, for sharing your wisdom with us on the final episode on fun. Both Marcy and I learned a lot. Again, we look forward to inviting you back on future episodes. We miss you a lot, so this will be a way for us to keep connecting with each other. So that's the wrap up for the final episode of season 1 of the Commissaire Commentaries. And,
can I add one thing?
Oh, sure. Anything.
I would like to tell the two of you that I think this podcast episodes, it's a brilliant idea, and that the two of you are putting so much time and effort into making sure there's something available that officials can use for inspiration, for extra help with learning new things. I think it's a really cool format, and I'd like to congratulate both of you on your effort and your first season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, I want to commend Ryan for doing most of the legwork here. So, you know,
thank you.
More congrats and thank you to Ryan too.
I think we complement each other very well. And Sarah, the podcast inspiration didn't come from us. We have to give our thanks to the NTC. I think probably when you were still on, there was this idea of a podcast, and I'm glad we were finally able to make it into reality this year. This is definitely a way to help shed light as a positive image for officials and a way for people to access this content and get inspired by it. So thank you for your encouragement, Sarah. We're gonna be taking off for a few weeks for winter season, winter holidays. For our listeners, if you have any ideas or suggestions or would like to be a guest on our podcast, please send us a note at usacofficialspodcast@gmail.com. Until we see you for the next season, we hope you have a safe, fair, and fun holidays.
Also acknowledging the fact that we, as officials,
just pause for a second. My cat has decided to yell. He never does that. I'm going to go put some food in their bowl and that will shut them up. I'll be right back.
Oh, that's great.
Stop it. What is up?
I think this will go in the bloopers reel. I think we're
Yeah,
going to
absolutely.
bloopers reel this time.